Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table. Welcome. You're listening to Money on Tap. My name's Seth Crustman, joined here once again by the one and only Benjamin Brayshaw. Dan Mickelin, how you guys doing today?
I'm doing great, Seth.
Feeling well. Feeling great.
I know, Dan, you got your hands full there with all sorts of knobs and dials and levers, and you're like the Wizard of Oz over there today, pulling all the show together.
Never look behind the curtain.
Hey, you guys, it's good to see you. It's good to have you. And if you're joining us here at Money on Tap and it's a first time for you, welcome to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And if you're old hat or if we are old news to you, well, we hope to bring you new news today and a show that you can take home to your mother and say, look what I've got. I learned this, and now I know how to do this personal finance thing. That's what we do on this show is we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're all financial planners with Brayshaw Financial Group. And what we love doing here is talking about personal finance. We talk about all sorts of things that are important for us as planners, important for our clients as having a goal usually of getting, to retirement or something like that. And as well, possibly something that's good for you to hold on to and make a part of your personal finance journey. We hope all those things come true. We hope all your dreams come true. And it happens right here today with us on Money on Tap. Before we get going on the show, hey, let me tell you what we're talking about on today's show is we're going to talk about HSAs. And HSAs, unless you know or haven't heard, they are a triple threat for anybody out there looking for how to lower their taxes and, really take advantage of what the IRS has available for the tax code in, postponing taxes or actually becoming tax-free eventually as far as a distribution comes off of these. And today we're going to be talking and diving into the content of HSAs. But before we do that, it is time for Money in the News. First up this week, cannot wait to talk about this, you guys. This is from Megan Heaney at Fox Business. It's Biden's IRS bank account snooping plan faces mounting opposition. And, I just got to say, praise the Lord. That's where I come to with that. I'm so glad people do not care to have Biden getting into their bank accounts with them and giving IRS all that information. Just me, just saying.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, this article is just the epitome of the amount of intrusion our government seems to want to keep having in our lives. And I think it points out a horrendous scenario. I mean, they really want every bank to disclose every transaction, $600 and north. I think the biggest issue here, separate from just the amount, I mean, people spend $600 or $1,000 or people buy four-wheelers and all this different stuff that's going on, or dirt bikes, or amplifiers, or whatever your hobbies are. That's why they have that $10,000 rule. Because once you're going over that kind of higher five-figure number, you're really doing an investment. You're doing some money movement at that point. But the burden on the banks for them to report everything that's $600 and what it is and everything else. I mean, can you imagine the amount of information we would have to disclose to the bank about what we're doing with our funds?
And it's not even transactions over 600. It's inflows and outflows. So, I mean, that's literally if you get a paycheck by EFT, your account will almost instantaneously be monitored or be subject to this reporting, which is it's just a horrific overreach. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, they're selling it to us on the notion that this will help eliminate all the tax cheats and close the gap, they say, between what the expected tax revenues are based upon their economic metrics and what they actually receive. But, there's simply got to be a better way to do it than that.
I think it's called auditing, last I checked. But you know what?
Well,
hey, this is probably part of the whole infrastructure thing is, like Jobs Act of America. Honestly, like there's not enough people out there that are turning down jobs as we speak, let alone ones for the IRS that they're going to, try to shell out at probably a whopping, 30 grand a pop or whatever it is to employ the people that are going to be miserable going through this process.
You can imagine how many people that have to hire. I mean, the IRS would become the biggest segment of our government that there is, and I don't think anybody wants that, right?
You said it, Dan.
This is absolutely crazy. And when you actually really break down what the IRS would be doing, we went from I think it was 18 or 22% of people, did itemized deductions and, went through the whole process of really doing really in-depth taxes to down to 7% when Trump raised the automatic deduction program and doubled it from $12,000 a year jointly to $24,000 a year. So that removed a ton of people who are itemizing. We're going back into a whole nother piece because honestly, I was just thinking about the burden we're putting on the American people, because if all of a sudden the IRS comes in and decides to audit you and you're, Tom, Dick, or Harry kind of person and just working a regular job and just kind of going through life, honestly, you'd have to prove every $600, every $1,000 scenario, you'd have to have some way to prove that. And then what kind of level of data storage is the average Joe going to need just to deal with a potential audit from the IRS over every few $1,000? Yeah, would it close a gap a little bit? Okay, maybe, but I don't think we're looking at the kind of gap problem that we have with our government. Honestly.
Their own metrics tell you that the bleed off and the lost tax revenue does not come from your average earner. The targets they need to be looking at are significantly up the pay scale. So these $600 transactions, it's a tough sell. I'm not buying it.
So here's the question I have, right? This costs how much? Not only the private industry that's having bank industry or whoever's having to do the reporting, there's a fee, but just to the tax base of the number of people that the IRS is going to have to employ to do this work. What's the net? What's the net that comes back into the kitty, right? And without even really doing too much around that, I guarantee you it's next to nothing.
I didn't even think about it, so you just said that, Seth. But, what are checking accounts going to cost with this additional fee? They're going to tack that on. There's going to be a cost to the banks to follow through on this reporting, and I can't expect they're going to eat that.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about the bank piece that you just mentioned, Dan, but I hadn't thought about the overall cost. The number of people is horrendous, and finding people to do the job isn't one thing, but the cost to it's going to be astronomical. I think there would be a net gain, probably. But I think honestly, and I've mentioned this before, but I think we're staring down the barrel of a national sales tax. That's what I think is going to happen here.
You keep promoting this national sales tax, Ben, and I'm about to reach through the screen and strangle you. Will you just keep that thought to yourself, please?
No, I know, but this, to audit a national sales tax, you would have to have a transactional oversight. I'm telling you, I really think our government's going that direction. I've never heard anybody in the government talk about it, and if someone has, I'd love to hear, any of our listeners, report that in. But, I think all these pieces play into it. I think in the secrecy of our world, I think that's what's going to end up happening here. And this is going to be a key piece to auditing sales, because why else would you care? Honestly, why else would you care? Is the government really concerned if you bought something on eBay for $500 and sold it for $700? Apparently,
yeah.
Yeah. This is the new deal. And there's somebody out there that's probably already written a sci-fi book about it all as well. And or maybe they've been able to pull it through the Book of Revelations in some way that I've never seen possible. You heard it here first, folks. Ben Brayshaw, National Sales Tax. If you have any information on that, reach out to us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And you know what? Since Ben's the one putting it out there, I'm going to give you his personal email address as well. So Just kidding. Just kidding. Hey, we've got some more to cover here, and these are really interesting articles. So let's get going here. We've got from Aaron Fuchs. Love another Fuchs out there. Got a good buddy, Fuchs. And this is in Yahoo Finance, identity theft, and what I learned after somebody used my Social Security number to try to trade stocks on Robinhood. And I get the feeling after reading this that their intention was not to just make Aaron a bunch of money and hand it back to him. But, yeah, that's what they did. They got his information. They got his email. They got his Social Security number, opened up an account for him at Robinhood. And guess what? He got an email letting him know, thank you for opening up an account with Robinhood. And would you please give us your bank account number and information so that we can connect you? What a deal.
This is crazy. I mean, identity theft just doesn't have an end. There's just so much criminal activity in this world that identity theft is going to become more and more of a problem. And I think with the technology realm, this is going to, not having as many signatures in place and paperwork and so forth. There's all this, technology oversight, but it leaves a whole nother set of vulnerabilities out there that are just, it's almost astronomical to figure out what the next plan is to take over someone's identity. I mean, it's crazy just to wash dollars. I mean, I understand why. I mean, it's millions and billions of dollars, but Robinhood, you think that all these kids and young adults who are opening up these small accounts, and why would they have one person who's opening up, $50,000, $100,000, $500,000, $1 million account? I mean, it seems like a lot of work. And it's such a, you think they would stand out more than a simple Robinhood trader in kind of their history, but maybe I just don't have enough information on that.
It's just, I think it goes back to how much money these people have to launder. I mean, they have vast sums in this. They're willing to take the chance in losing the $1 million. So the likelihood's got to be high that they know that's going to happen. But, they're willing to take those chances to create opportunities to get it back to themselves clean. And a lot of these things get traced back to these data breaches, right? You keep hearing about, if not weekly or daily. I mean, it's every month you hear about a big one on a massive scale. But this idea that these private companies out there hold all your data, they're so open to these types of hacks, is really a scary thought. I mean, one of the things I took out of the article was, the kind of the policing of your own passwords and how long you use them for and where you've used them, and being personally aware of all these hacks that happen. Did you have an account there? Did you have a relationship with these people at any point in time? And if you did, what passwords were you using? Do you still use it? I mean, I know I've got a handful of passwords that I've used alternatingly since passwords began, and this type of article kind of scare you straight on that.
Yeah, you're right. When I was reading about that, and they were saying that, they took this data hack and they took that password, and then they find out a little bit more information. They start using that password everywhere just to see if it works and variations of it. That's crazy. Yeah,
how fast they can probably do this with technology now. They could probably try, 1 million accounts in a minute, and, they're going to strike gold somewhere along the way, most likely.
I'm kind of curious why they just don't create, if they've got this much money out there, they're needing to push through the system, why they just don't, buy Robinhood, Just go buy Robinhood and do what you want with it under the hood. No pun intended.
Maybe they do own it.
So one of the things that, hey, there you go, maybe. So I love what he does here, though. For first of all, like what is the protection or the protective actions that he winds up taking and trying to figure this out? For one, he wasn't able to find out anything as far as getting a hold of Robinhood. So what he does as a media personality is he puts it out there on the social media that this has happened, and he's got a real problem with it. And it took, after probably a couple of hours of trying to search how to get a hold of Robinhood, it took him 12 minutes to get a response from them that they're on it. And the guy's name was Dan, apparently, that started taking care of this. And by the end of the day, they had figured out this was not his account, and it wasn't some other Aaron Fuchs out there, because there's other Aaron Fuchs doing what Aarons do in the world of finance. But so the next step that he took was to sign up for Identity Guard Ultra Family Plan, and start going through a process of finding out what is out there on the dark web with all of his information and all the different leaks and hacks and things that have happened with his information. And then last but not least is changing over his passwords and making sure that there's no old passwords out there that they can just start using in different places and kind of trying to poke holes in his protection. So all good things that he did and listed here, and things that we'd certainly recommend with our clients and clientele. I feel like lately means over the last couple of years for me, is that I need to go and spend more time with my father, who's over 80, and guard his phone. Right? That's more. He's not an email guy. He's a phone dude. And I every time I'm there, he's like answering the phone. Just wants to talk. He's a friendly guy, and it's some scam. And I'm like, Dad, you've got to stop this. Please do not talk to them. And he's still with it enough that he's like, that's funny. They wanted this information here, and they wanted me to do that, and they told me this, and he gets a kick out of it. But anyways, that's the way I feel about it.
He's probably dragging him along a little bit just to entertain himself, I bet, knowing your dad.
Got nothing better to do. Let's listen to what this guy's deal is.
Yeah, might as well talk to the Prince of Nigeria over lunch, right? He's got this banking transaction he's got to get solved.
Yeah, the cops are coming right now. Do not hang up the phone. Just give me your information to keep them from coming and arresting you because your Social Security number is whatever.
Well, up next we have. This is going to be a story for almost. I look at this story from CNN by Jackie Wattles. Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are arguing over the moon already. Here's what it all means. Now, it's just interesting because Musk and Bezos, they're two competitors, right? They're two people. They're going to be arguing over every major opportunity out there. We'll be hearing about the moon, Jupiter, Mars, you name it.
This is such a different sandbox that I'm used to playing in.
Yeah. We don't argue with these guys, but I think it's funny that they're arguing over who's going to be on the moon first, all this stuff. And they're literally competing financially to win NASA bids to be able to do all this stuff, which is, these guys aren't as wealthy and as creative and as brilliant as they are, for what they've accomplished in their life, but they're not competitive. These guys are super competitive, and I can only imagine them being on the phone being like, dude, I'm going to win this NASA contract, and they're launching.
Yeah, that's what I lose sleep about at night is whether or not I got the NASA contract.
Yeah, it'd be Musk being like, I can't believe Bezos is getting into this is a very interesting world, and I find it, I think, some people love our money in the news, some people don't, but we choose our articles very intentionally. There's a lot in the atmosphere that's going to happen, from satellites to trips to the moon, to people wanting to be in space, to people wanting to live on the moon, to people trying to get to Mars, and the exploration. And there's going to be a lot of money flowing through this area, and trying to figure out if this is a place that investment should occur for you or even for us. We're constantly doing research on this stuff. Now, I don't know if either one of these companies is something you should invest in as a leader, as a listener, but we're obviously looking into all the development around this stuff because we potentially see that this is an industry that's worth a lot of money, that people are very interested in. And there's going to be investments out there that are going to be everything from, atmospheric satellites that will be for cell phones and GPS and car driving, that all the way to travel and exploration and vacations in space.
And you're so serious here, but I am serious as well about this, that what's going to happen next is once they get up there, they're going to discover that there's gold on the moon. And then you're going to see the entire West Coast go to the moon, because that's what we've done over here. There was gold in those hills. You told us there was gold in those hills a long time ago, and we all came over here to the West Coast, and that's that's next migration that's going to happen for us, folks.
Bring your own pickaxe.
Well, a joke that goes back in history for him and I, but that might be a little inside, but that's true. We did tell people there was gold out west, and they started on those wagons way back when. But, I think This article talks about there is the desire to build a permanent lunar settlement. For someone who wants to live on the moon, there's people out there getting ready to build it, and they're going to sell you a condo. So I think that's pretty interesting. I mean, I think that condo is going to be like 100 square feet, but, it's going to be an interesting story. People are going to
location, baby.
When I think about Musk and Bezos, I think about like every bad guy in every James Bond movie out there. Like, these guys are always trying to conquer the globe, the world. They're all out there.
It's so appropriate that you bring that up, because this next week we're going to have a new James Bond movie. That'll be so funny if they make cameos.
They definitely have that arch villain look going on. I can see them fitting in right into character. It'd be perfect.
That's going to do it for us in Money in the News. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Now, folks, do not go anywhere, because when we come back, we're going to start talking and explaining and digging into the HSA, the triple threat of the tax code world out there. If it's something that you're using, well, there's probably some way that you might be able to use it a little differently. You're going to want to know. If you're not familiar with what we're talking about here, it's amazing. And one of the favorite things that we sit down and we help our clients understand a little bit about how they can do this. So, hey, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're listening to Money on Tap. Folks, it is so much fun for us to bring you Money on Tap. My name's Seth Kressman, and I am one of the hosts here at Money on Tap. I'm also a financial planner. That's what we do. That's what Ben and I do. And the fun part is we get to have this radio show. We talk about important things that we think you need to listen to and be aware of to help raise the bar as far as your financial literacy. It's a big part of what we're trying to do here. The other thing that we're doing here as well, as financial planners, we are welcoming you to come and call us and to join us at Brayshaw Financial Group. Experience what complete wealth management looks like. Let's take a look at all sides of the issue, get a three-dimensional perspective, and put a plan around your next step. It's so critical. And so many people just leave this part out, and then they find out later, oh, if I only would have known. Hey, don't let that be your story. Give us a call at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. If you have $250,000 of investable assets today, our plan is free to you. We think it's important for you to know the facts and have a playbook so you can have a successful retirement. Give us a call at 855-226-8551. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And it's a lot of fun to be here with you guys today and to be able to talk to you about what we call the triple threat of in the tax code of financial planning. It's a tool that not a whole lot of people really talk about or understand, and sometimes feels like they don't even respect it because it just doesn't get the credit it really deserves. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the Health Savings Account, or HSA is what most people refer to this as. So to get us started, let's I just want to let you know where we're going to land the plane. First of all, we're going to talk about some things that nobody's ever really brought to the table around the HSA. So that's where we're going to get. And if a lot of this is just information review, whatever, it's the foundation of what we need to understand around the HSA before we start getting there. So, for starters, what is an HSA? Dan, tell us all about the HSA.
Well, it's it's a multi-purpose tool, like you mentioned, Seth. It's got a lot of advantages, and simplest definition, right? It's a health savings account. So what it is it's a program sometimes provided by your employer. You can also get it in the private marketplace where you can set aside money on a tax-deferred basis, tax-deductible basis. It'll grow tax-deferred, and if used for qualified medical expenses, it'll come back out to you tax-free. So that's the triple threat that Seth was just talking about. But it's got some contribution limits, so there's only so much you can put in there. But if you can accumulate some significant dollars in there by, contributing over time consistently, it can be just an absolutely great tool to have in retirement. It's really an important part to defend against one of the biggest threats we see every day is dealing with medical costs.
So exactly right. And actually, as you were kind of laying it out there, Dan, I had a question about that triple threat, and this one's for you, Ben, the tax guru. Is there anything like this out there in the world of planning that we have access to?
Well, not from the standpoint of the investment side. What people don't really usually know with their HSA is that they can invest those funds into a traditional brokerage account even, and depending on the company and the carrier, we invest these things and we can buy ETFs, stocks, bonds, whatever you want. And I highly encourage people to take advantage of that opportunity, especially younger people, because it's a great deduction. There's no contribution. There's no income limits to being able to contribute to an HSA. There's nothing out there that does that tax-free, pre-tax contribution, tax-free growth, and then tax-free distribution for qualified medical expenses. So from that standpoint, that concept of triple threat is huge. We're not getting into charitable work and stuff like that where we create other washes, and so forth tax-wise. But for a traditional person, this is a very good opportunity. And it's nice to have some cash on the backside for medical expenses, because a lot of people, you have those unforeseen health events as families.
What's interesting is that one of the little nuggets I discovered in kind of getting ready for the show is that only 4% of HSA programs out there on the books are actually invested in the market, which is, that's mind-blowing to consider that few of the people who have realized the value in the program, decided to partake, are setting aside money, but missing perhaps the biggest opportunity of all is that it doesn't need to be in a savings account. It doesn't need to sit in cash. You can actually grow this thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and you're 100% on I think what the mindset is of the typical consumer of how they can use this. For one, there's that deduction that we're talking about, right? So the IRA, if you contribute to an IRA, that's what we're talking about as far as the deduction. This is your income not getting taxed. You're just setting it aside and putting it into this HSA account. So it's nice. You're not getting taxed on those dollars. That's the first place. And then the distribution being tax-free, well, that's wonderful. But is it really an advantage to, if all you're doing is putting the money inside of this and then, pulling it out the backside for qualified medical expenses for, tax-free? Yeah, it is. It's still an advantage. But with how this works, it's kind of like the Roth, and it's kind of like the IRA, where the money is growing. If you're investing it inside of that HSA, that money is compounding. Remember, that's money working for us, helping us out, growing. It's like adding another income to your base there, growing and compounding over time. And while it's doing that, it's not getting taxed. And that's like your IRA, that's like your 401k, that's like your Roth, and that is incredibly powerful for you to be able to grow your nest egg. That's it. Show's over, folks.
No, the thing is that, I've chatted about this a couple times. We meet people, and people are like, well, it's just a few $1,000s, or I'm doing $7,200 as a family, and we use some of it for medical expenses, and it's not going to amount to much. But the truth is that people were saying that, 20 years ago with Roth IRAs, like it's not going to amount to much. And honestly, it's going to be fine. It's going to add up tremendously. And then if you do invest some of it in the market, you give us a call. We open up a brokerage account. we start putting some money away. You start making a little bit of money, and it actually works out really well. And I think we're going to turn around, and that 4% that Dan you've talked about, those people are going to be, when they hit retirement, they hit 70, 75, 80. They're going to look at their HSAs, and they're going to have $1 million there, and they're going to say to us, you know what? I don't need to buy long-term care insurance. I don't need to do any of that stuff. I've got a full program ready to take care of all of that and my medical bills outside of, Medicare and Medicaid, not even an issue. I've got all the money I need. If you do it right, that 4%, if you're listening today and you're 45, you're 40, you're 35, you're 20, whatever it is, this is an invaluable program for you to contribute to. And it's something that it's not really a priority for a lot of people because they're trying to do other things. They're trying to put other monies away.
If you think about the things that are eligible expenses, right? A lot of times I think the notion of qualified medical expense scares people off because they say, well, the definitions around that are going to be so tight, and they'll think about it along the lines of long-term care as, well, these are costs that I may not incur. But the reality is that they're much more practical than that, much more significantly useful than that. And these are costs that we will all likely incur. And to be able to get the front-end deduction and then the back-end tax-free use of the money, I mean, you must be cutting your costs in half. And these are things that you're going to face in the future, such as
Dan. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention a couple of them. So, Medicare premiums. We'll all be paying in at some point. Those are eligible costs for this. Things like a portion of a long-term care policy, the premiums you pay there, should you choose to buy it, you can use these for that as well. Medical expenses you've already incurred that you have receipts for, you can debit those off of that and claim the tax savings on those dollars as well. So I mean, it's incredibly practical. They even give you a debit card where you can check your balance, and you can use it at CVS or Rite Aid or wherever you shop for some of this stuff. Things like hearing aid batteries and hearing aids. So it's a pretty comprehensive list. It's not so limited as you might think.
Dan, you mentioned that, and we say things like, hey, you're going to have a large balance on your HSA plan. At the end of the day, I mean, we have single pay long-term care programs where someone can just pay, be done. And it's like, hey, I never needed this for my health prior. And now, a health issue for me or my spouse covered, taken care of, not an issue. And so that's a great opportunity. But I really think there's going to be programs that are so large that people will just be self-insuring even.
You're getting too far ahead of me, you guys. We're going to take a break here soon, but before we do, let's talk about how do you get these things. I mean, I know I'm sold. I want this HSA thing. I'm going to run down to 7-Eleven or Dunkin' Donuts and pick myself up one. It's so tasty, and I can't wait. But that's but what we really mean to say here is that they are available all over the place. These are really easy things for you to pick up. You're at your bank. You're sitting at you're sitting down with us doing some planning. It's just part of what we're going to do and checking a box and getting one open for you. And the way that you can use these is so simple too, right? It's a debit card. You're picking up NyQuil or, your whatever you're at the pharmacy for, and it just happens to be Band-Aids or aspirin or whatever. Guess what? Pull that card out and that's what you're using. And it's that simple and easy. So, but before we get there, we need to be able to fund these things and qualify for them, right? So there's limitations, for one. In order to qualify for these, you do have to have a high deductible plan. And what does that mean? That means you have this health insurance, and it has to have a minimum deductible of $1,400 for an individual or $2,800 for a family. If that's just, jargon and it doesn't make sense, what we're saying at this point, it's a real simple thing to find out. Do you even qualify? And after you figure out, I've got one of these plans. Really frankly, most people do and are qualified for these. And you're not on Medicare. That's the other thing. You're not going to be able to open one of these up if you're already on Medicare, right? But once we establish that, then we can understand how much money can we put into these for you. Dan, would you like to pick that up?
Yeah, so the limits, and I think Ben might have hit on this, it's Presently, it's $7,200 for a family, $3,600 for an individual. This is one of those things like the 401k contributions and Roth limits that tend to go up every year. So for 2022, we know that those numbers will be $7,300 for a family, $3,650 for an individual. So depending upon your personal situation, if you're setting aside for just you yourself or for your family, those are some reasonable numbers. I mean, that's if you're able to really max that out, you'd be setting aside quite a large sum for yourself.
Yeah, so right off the top, you're talking about $7,600, right, for a family that isn't taxed.
Yeah, great way to bring down your tax bill at the end of the year.
Yeah,
no doubt about that.
And usually, I mean, one of the things that I just kind of want to prepare people around is that mindset. A lot of people think, I can't save for retirement. You guys, this is stuff that you're already doing, right? Even if you're just taking whatever percentage of your paycheck out every month and setting it aside into this HSA, I guarantee you sooner or later this year, you're going to be at the pharmacy or at the grocery store or wherever you are buying different stuff. Would you rather have that tax-free? You're doing it anyways. It's just running a little side hustle over here and putting the money aside to do this thing that you're already doing. Hustle. It's not that hard.
Well, you're right. It's not that hard. I would tell you that probably the one reason why, you don't hear a lot of financial people pushing out the HSA conversation. We've done other shows on HSA. So if this one doesn't click, listen to another one, because when you really get out to the meat of it, the HSA offers significant opportunity in a lot of ways. And we're going to get into this a little deeper, which it does go deeper after our break. But what I would tell you is that a lot of people don't talk about it because at the end of the day, it's not a large investment amount, right? So financial advisors are not looking for small investments, they're looking for large investors. And so they end up, missing out on some of the best little loopholes that exist in our tax code. And honestly, sometimes those ones are it's like it becomes the squeaky wheel for you. If you keep hearing about it and you start realizing the value of it, just like a Roth IRA and all the reasons you can get money out of a Roth IRA in a healthy way to help deal with issues. If you know these things well enough, you can really create opportunity for yourself financially. And that's the one thing. People don't have financial opportunities. They just do one thing. They don't explore other opportunities because they don't have the time. And we understand that. That's why you give us a call. We can walk you through some of the simple questions and what makes sense for you in the planning piece.
Yeah, folks, you're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And we are going to take a quick break. And I love what you just said there, Ben, because all of a sudden I'm thinking about the Belichick-Brady era of the Patriots dynasty, and it was death by 1,000 paper cuts all the time. First down, first down, first down. Same way you win at the tax game, folks. Can't wait to discuss more with you. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more on the HSA.
Call us today at 855-226-8551 and get your free consultation with Ben Brayshaw or Seth Krussman or any one of our partners and find out what's going on in your plan, your estate plan, your financial plan, or what you're planning at all, if nothing. Get it fixed, get it right, get it done today. Give us a call at 855-226-8551.
On this Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, Ben and Seth look at the less than cheery future of Social Security and what we may expect down the road.
Here's an article from Fox Business. Social Security funds could run out of money sooner than expected, forecast warns. I think there's not really too many people who don't foreshadow Social Security having a problem in the future. They're talking about running out of money in 2033. It used to be 2034. It used to be 2037. The countdown's getting closer, not only because we're moving forward in time, but the clock is shortening. And that has been on your Social Security statement on the front page, on the right-hand side, in the bottom right corner, second paragraph down. I happen to know exactly where it is. And it has been there for a very, very, very long time, years and years and years, probably at least a decade or two. And they have been warning us of this shortfall for a very long time. This article goes into the fact that those benefits will run out, according to now, 2033, when this informed me that we had lost a year, as it used to be 2034, tax revenue will cover just about 76% of its scheduled benefits for that year. The problem that they're actually addressing is, and the reason the shortfall keeps going down is because with the taxes that they have been lowering, and the more they lower those, the more that shortfall exists.
Yeah, and the pandemic also had an impact there. They talked to that point where so many people were out of work that there was just less payroll tax going through, less taxes collected to fund Social Security specifically. So that, like everything else in life, there was an impact there. But it's true, Ben. I mean, we've been seeing those statements and kind of counting on that reduction in benefit for really quite some time now.
It's not a conversation that we haven't had before. The question really is, what is going to happen, right? Because there's that scary piece there of how are we going to pull this program out of no funds?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, there's really only one way that this thing goes the way it needs to go. One is we're going to write some huge checks that we have no way to cash. And that's option one. So massive inflation. The second scenario is that a large population passes away that's older. That doesn't have a claim on that. That's a horrible, horrific perspective. And then the other scenario is you lower Social Security, which is most likely the outcome, which I know we've chatted about it in the past. Like, can we do planning for people who say to us, I'm not counting on Social Security. I will do all my planning, no Social Security. I got 10, 15 years before I'm going to retire. What's that look like? I'm totally fine with that and totally respect that opinion. And I think that's the case. Do I think there's going to be some Social Security benefit? Yeah, I do. I think our government's going to write some checks, and I do think there's going to be some tapering on it. If you're a politician, this is the diciest item that you could possibly put your hands on. People do not want you touching their money or their perceived money.
Thanks for joining us for this Cliff Notes edition of Money on Tap, with great tips from the pros in three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. Now here's more Money on Tap with Ben and Seth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap, and you can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And today, folks, we have been talking about HSAs. Now, believe it or not, it is now a quadruple threat. You've just heard it here because why not? When you go to Starbucks, it feels so much better to ask for a quad Americano than, whatever ounce you're ordering there. It really feels good. So why not? We got a quadruple threat here with the HSA we're going to be talking about. And we are actually what is the quadruple threat? Why do we even say that? Dan is going to tee it up here for us and talk about that fourth thing that people really or rarely ever know about.
Well, yeah, so to recap and bring everybody back to the triple threat we started about with, if you remember, it's tax deductible when you fund it, right? It grows tax deferred, and when spent on a qualified expense, it's tax-free, right? So very few programs that our government offer give us those kind of distinct advantages. So as planners and as people who help people plan for retirement and set aside the necessary funds to get through a smooth retirement, this is absolute gold for us. And considering, again, that the biggest threat that we typically face for people in a retirement plan is the unknown of a medical expense, for people who are in the position to set aside money to build this type of account, it just gives us that extra safety blanket or that extra parachute that allows us to, pull a different lever to create a little bit of income or liquidity that can help offset these unexpected costs, which can be catastrophic. So if you can imagine, having in combination with your IRA and your pension and Social Security, your 401k, long-term care plan if you happen to have had it, but this HSA account set aside and reserved specifically for that purpose, it's truly a godsend. And, we can envision that really helping out people when significant health issues arise. But if it doesn't, right, then what do you do? And why does the HSA stand out for us in those type of opportunities? But before we get there to that last leg of the quadruple threat, some things to keep in mind about this account too. when I first started hearing about this, I often got crossed up between this and the FSA, right? So you have a lot of employers that you go into the open enrollment period and you're talking about health insurance, which is the most important thing. And then they have these kind of add-ons there that you can, elect to participate in. And, you're kind of skimming over that, reading kind of quick, again, focuses on what's the right health plan for you and for your family. But, with the FSA versus the HSA, very important to note these differences. With the FSA, if the money isn't spent by the end of the year, you lose it, right? So, if you get that confused with this program, it will deter you from participating, and it's really an entirely different thing. With the HSA, it's portable. It's your account. It goes with you wherever you are. You can change jobs, move, whatever the circumstances are. It is forever yours. And if you don't need it and you happen to pass, you can leave it to your spouse and it remains in that HSA status. However, if it was to be left to anybody else, then it's treated more like an IRA, right? So it's no longer going to have some of that HSA benefit, but the money's not gone. They'll receive it in its invested form or whatever it may have been in, and can go forward with it there as adding it to a retirement program or just setting it aside in kind of whatever form or fashion makes sense for them at that point. But one of the other really unique opportunities is, the fourth leg of the quadruple threat here, right, is that at age 65, once you've achieved that age, you can use the money for other expenses. It'll be treated just like an IRA or 401k. Prior to age 65, though, the big disclaimer is any expense you take on and you use through the debit card or through this program, you're going to be looking at a 20% penalty on that cost. So, be mindful. That's a steep penalty. Be aware that there is a list, right? There is a definition as to what it can be spent on, but it may not be as tight and restrictive as you think. But at 65, the money's there to be used, and whatever type of cost you feel like is necessary to use it for, without that type of penalty being applied.
Dan, you talk about that, and I think this is one area where, I really think creating options, and we talk about options, is so powerful, and having the ability to take money out of an HSA in retirement post 65, use it just like an IRA or 401k would be used, and fulfill your retirement demands. Awesome. Super great. I think it's amazing, too, that if you do have these qualified expenses, and as you mentioned earlier, long-term care insurance and all these other pieces of things that people don't even realize are totally within the wheelhouse of being able to use it and avoid that penalty. But that penalty is huge. So the planning piece around this for people needs to be very sincere and have significant intent that you're like if you want to retire early or pre-65, and maybe you're not even sure that you want to retire early, but you have a health change that causes an early retirement, which we've had a number of people in our career who have had health changes before 65, heart attack, stroke, you name it. Having a balanced perspective on the funds you need prior to 65 for retirement and the amount of funds you need post 65, this creates a balance in the HSA piece. But for people who are looking to work all those years and having a secondary retirement piece because, hey, they were part of that 4%, Dan, that you talked about. Hopefully our podcast makes it 5%, right, of people that actually do HSAs, right, that invest them in the market, that they actually get investments. They build an asset class that they can look at for either retirement or their health, and potentially in that order if they're doing the real planning in their health and they are healthy.
As many tax-sheltered buckets as the government provides, if you're in the position to do it, fill them all. Fill every one of them.
So let's say, folks, that all of this is sounding wonderful, but maybe this year you're really struggling with coming up with the money to fund or divert over into the HSA, but you're looking for a way to cover some medical expenses, and the HSA sounds great. Well, this is one of those things that so few people even know or even talk about or bring to the table. It's called a qualified HSA funding distribution, or a QHFD. And what it feels like and kind of looks like to us is a rollover. So what is this? What are we talking about here? What we're talking about is taking money from your IRA, okay, in that qualified account, and distributing it into the HSA so that you have it available to you to use for the medical expenses that you might have. And there's limitations to this. It's not a just grab the money you want and pull it on over and do this as often as you'd like. The limitations are you can only do this one time. Okay, so it's a one-time distribution to from your IRA into your HSA, and the amount that you're allowed to distribute has to fall within your whatever the contribution amount is for the year. So individual, family, over the age of 55, all those numbers that we talked about before, that's the limitation that you have as far as how much you can take from that IRA and put it into the HSA. There's a couple of other things here, too. You do still have to have a high-deductible health plan, and you have to remain eligible for that for 12-month period. Okay, so you're already in that first check the box, can I qualify for this? Yep, check the box, I can do this. So that's pretty much it. I mean, these are some of the rules of the road that you've got to abide by in here. But the benefits are still, you get the tax or the qualified distribution or contribution, right? You still get that tax benefit on the way in because that IRA distribution is not getting taxed. It's getting applied as if it's your income, but going into the HSA. So that same benefit applies, as well as when you wind up using that distribution, it's a tax-free distribution for you to use for the qualified medical expenses. So one time only, have to already be eligible for a high-deductible health plan, and you have to remain eligible for a 12-month period. But it's a little-known way that you might be able to free up some capital for yourself to cover some expenses, and you do have to use it within the year, okay? And that's it.
Well, that's a lot of information, but I think this is a program and just a little known, little taken advantage of opportunity for everybody out there it just can be proved to be really important down the road. You never know with these things, but I think what we were trying to convey here is that even if ultimately it's not a medical expense, and it's hard to imagine that anybody's going to make their way all the way through retirement without any of these things, but even if you're lucky enough to be that person, that the money still has practical use for yourself or your family. It's not lost, it's not gone, and it did benefit from the triple tax exemption the entire time it was saved and growing and deferring gains over however many long years you were able to contribute to it. Just a very worthwhile program to engage in.
As we kind of wrap up here, I'm really thinking that if you're listening to this show and you're saying to yourself, I'm not even sure what half of this stuff is and all the different pieces that we talk about. And, this is where you just give us a call and we kind of talk through things. Because when we sit down with people, if an HSA makes sense and it's the appropriate move for you at that point in time, we're going to help you do that. If you're just looking to run by questions on certain things, you're welcome to give us a call too on that. But all the different things that we talk about, it's all a resource for you to really amplify just the effect of the outcome you're trying to accomplish. And some of these things are going to fit in well and some won't. An HSA is really a phenomenal tool, but you may be going through something else in your life or a different struggle, whether it's a lost job or a business issue or any number of things, a tax problem, that you're just saying, hey, HSA isn't my story, but there's other things. There may be ways we can help you that you've never considered. And I would just encourage people that this is just the beginning of a long story of things that we can help people with. But an HSA really does offer a lot.
Folks, that's going to do it for us on Money on Tap. It's been a lot of fun talking with you guys about HSAs, all the different ways that this quadruple threat can be used and it could be considered. Yeah, take a look. See what's going on. See if this is something that might work for you. Give us a call. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Make it a great week.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.
Well, bye.